Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this special call meeting of the Danville City Commission for today, May the 10th. The hour is 5:35. Most of us have been here, well, all of us have been here since 4 o'clock. And so things are going to get interesting because we're all a little bit cooked already. All that said, I'll call us to order, and I will ask that we be led by prayer by Commissioner Denise Terry.
Thank you. Please pray with me. Almighty God, I pray today with a sad but hopeful heart to put peace in the hearts of those who are filled with hate. I pray all plans to destroy this country will fail, and I ask you to help end COVID-19. I ask that you guide all people toward you and toward peace. Thank you for all the blessings you have given this community. I ask that you keep us safe from harm and danger, sickness and disease, and keep us mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually healthy so we may contribute our best to our fellow citizens, and also to give us the opportunity and courage to love and encourage others. Bless and protect our first responders and military as they protect our freedoms. Amen.
Amen. Well done, ma'am. I'll ask that we be led, join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask our City Attorney, Stephen Dexter, to come forward and lead us in that, please. Were you an Eagle Scout? I was not. Well, let's see if you remember it anyway. Thank you, Council. Can do that.
And you was in trouble.
Thank you. Commission, you have had the agenda since Friday, and unless I hear otherwise, I will assume that we'll move right on. And we will begin with item 1. And this is a proclamation for Police Officer Memorial Week. Chief Gray, I'm glad you're with us, as I'd like to read this and acknowledge your presence as representative of the Police Department. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of law enforcement agency of the City of Danville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the City of Danville and its citizens, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding lives and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the law enforcement agency of the City of Danville unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore be it resolved that Mayor G. Michael Peros and the City Commissioners of the City of Danville do hereby upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 9th through the 15th, 2021 as National Police Officer Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observations in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities and, in doing so, have established themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and securities of all citizens. Furthermore, Mayor G. Michael Peros and the Board of Commissioners of the City of Danville call upon all citizens to observe May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice to their community and have become disabled in the performance of the duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes in a ceremony at Bellevue Cemetery, May 14th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's this May 14th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Do I hear a motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Atkins, second by Commissioner Terry. Thank you. You want to third it, ma'am? All in favor of the proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Chief, on a personal note, I'm very proud of our police department. Fortunately, in Danville, Kentucky, the police are not under scrutiny and attack like they are everywhere else. But you all do a fantastic job. Nobody's perfect, but you all do a fantastic job. And I'm sure many times it's thankless. But I think this commission's here to say thank you for what you do.
And we need to get, Chief Gray needs to tell us, he just had another anniversary with his career as a police officer, but also, more importantly, with the Danville Police Department.
Mayor and Commissioners, we appreciate your support and the proclamation as always. We will lay wreaths out at the graves at the ceremony or at the cemetery on Friday the 14th at 3 o'clock. We will not really do a public service again because of COVID protocols. Richmond has moved theirs until June to see if it's better with the COVID rate and stuff like that. But they're not going to do theirs this week either. But we will lay wreaths out there and honor the two fallen officers that we have, Crum and Ryan. And then we will also celebrate them through or memorialize them on Facebook and stuff. We'll put their story out there.
So that's not really a public service on Friday?
It will not be a public service
Okay.
this Friday.
So what's the anniversary, Chief?
Friday was my 26th year here at the city.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank
A
you.
little long, a little short up top.
Had a lot more hair when you started out, right?
I think so. Not much, just a little bit.
You used to smile a lot more too, didn't you?
I think I still try that.
How have things changed in 26 years?
Oh, wow. Greatly, you know. A lot more computers. In fact, we didn't have computers when I first started. Didn't even have tasers when I first started.
Cameras?
No cameras, things like that were cutting edge and very new when I first started. Today, those are, you know, common things on every officer's belt or body armor and things like that.
How have things changed in the community?
I think that, you know, the climate for law enforcement has been topsy-turvy the last couple of years. But I think we've been fortunate, and I feel like we've been a little bit ahead of the curve on trying to get out and be as community policing as we can be. I'm sure, as we all know, we can be better at it. And hopefully when COVID lifts, we can do some more things with town hall meetings and different things like that, be out and be more visible. But COVID has hurt this environment for policing, really, for us to get out and be more in our neighborhoods and communities. So that's one drawback that COVID has brought us.
So are you all still doing the ride-alongs?
We do ride-alongs. We don't do them as frequently as we used to. We've kind of cut down on that just a little bit. We didn't do hardly any last year because of COVID, but we have slowly opened up. We've had a couple actually last week and a couple already scheduled for this week. So we're trying to get back into doing a couple a week now.
So here's my challenge to my brethren up here. And that is to get in touch with the chief and schedule yourself a ride-along. And I don't know, it's been 15 years since I did it. And you know, you think, oh gosh, I know Danville. No, you don't know Danville.
Can we do it with the chief or any officer?
It's up to the chief.
He said, call the chief.
Yeah, you can call me to set it up, but you know, we'll let you ride with whoever.
It's a nighttime trip though, right?
I would suggest an evening trip.
Yeah,
You
nighttime
know, the
trip.
city changes when the lights go down.
Yeah, that's right.
Sunday night? Sunday night's a good time?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
For the brave of heart, either pick Friday night or Saturday.
Right, yeah.
So I'll be in touch with you because I'll start.
Yeah, we welcome that. I think the ladies and gentlemen that we got working, you know, that would be kind of good for them as well.
Yeah.
But we
Oh, yeah.
welcome you all, anybody to come in and do a ride along with us.
Perfect.
Do I get a belt?
What's that?
Do I get a belt and a chest protector and all that?
Just a camera.
Okay.
You stay in the cruisers.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't get out of the car.
We got to protect
Get
you
your
now.
back seat.
That's the first part of our duty, protect and serve.
That's right. So that's my challenge to my fellow commissioners. I'm sure they'll do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Item 2 is the City of Danville logo presentation. Mr. Ryan Lanigan is here with us. So if you would, sir, make yourself comfortable over there.
Right, man.
You are, if it makes it easier for you to be heard, I'll let you decide best way for you to be heard.
Well, thank you guys for taking some time and allowing me to present. I think several folks in this room have been working with me for a while on this project, so thank those folks as well. Can everybody hear me okay without the microphone? A little easier for me to.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. So I need to sit down then.
there you go.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll say all that again. You guys hear me now? Does that work? Okay.
Good, yep.
All right. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to come and present the logo. Thank you for working with me on the project. I thank the folks in this room that have worked on the project with us. And we've been at it for past several months, off and on. So excited to show you where we ended up for those that have not seen it. And hopefully this is something that everyone can see. Don't know if we have a camera I need to get this in front of. But this is the end result of several months and discussions and revisions in terms of the main logo for the city. And as you can see from the visuals, we've got a reference to this very building that we're in. A unique blue for this logo identity package, unique font styles, and visuals that we can apply to other materials as we move along.
Hey, Matt, do we have an overhead projector on these? Okay.
And I can provide files for anyone that needs them if necessary.
I just want to make it so the public can see it.
Absolutely, absolutely, we can do that. So, obviously, a lot of discussion went into this, a lot of back and forth. I think we had about 10 rounds of revision on it total with the group. But we landed here, we made some kind of last-minute additions. We added a KY to the end, and we built a system for other entities within the city. I'll show next. So really a pretty simple adaptation. As you can see, we have the example of Public Works here. This will work for other departments, entities within the city system. And then kind of the end result of some discussion, I wanted to have a shorthand, a visual stamp, for lack of a better term. Something you can use alone in small spaces that still references the system. So hopefully folks can see that. So again, the idea here is we've built a system of fonts and colors and marks that'll identify the city system, and then the subsets of entities within the system. And eventually, we'll be delivering a brand standards manual that'll have everything spelled out to where folks know the standards of how everything's to be applied, and show examples of all the different entity marks and all those things. So I'd open the floor up for questions. Anybody has any questions or comments? Anything they'd like to know more about? Definitely here to answer them.
Questions?
I like it.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for your patience. Because it's been going on for a good little period of time.
It's been a little while. Yeah, it's been good, though. It's been productive. We've had a lot of
Good results,
discussions.
though. I like the results.
Well, thank you. Glad to hear
I just
that.
want to know it's got public, I like the way you're going to do the subdivisions of all of our different departments. I think that's really sharp.
Yeah, we're hopeful it'll be a good system that'll apply to everyone. Be useful.
Now, how do we go forth from here?
We will start to look at where we employ it, whether it be letterhead. We'll develop those concepts. What word did you just call the?
Brand standards guide?
Yeah, your brand standards guide.
Yeah.
How to implement it on letterhead and how to implement those types of things. We particularly like the deed. I know there was like 50 iterations of that. So it's important we use that this afternoon in a presentation we made to Congressman Guthrie.
Oh, okay.
In the PowerPoint, we just branded that in the corner, so it links everything together. So we feel good about that, and think it was a good exercise. It's a more modern look, which we also have. I felt like we, as a group, as staff, felt like there was a need for it. Certainly, we had received that feedback from the commission, and so hopefully it's an acceptable product for folks.
The D really stands out.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Staff, for your hard work also.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Does the commission want to vote to accept the logo design into the record? I think that'd be appropriate.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept the design.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Commissioner Holland, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is streetscape design progress update with our friends from Gresham Smith. If you will join us at the table. You may have to lean together to share the microphone, but whatever works.
We can pass it back and forth.
There you go.
Thank you all for letting us come here and present a progress update with you tonight. You have some slides with you, I believe, in your packet. I did do some editing, so there might be a little bit of changes, but the slides are up on the screen to follow along. For today's agenda, I'll just give you an introduction to who we are and the team, the background, sort of how we've gotten to this project, how those big ideas from the master plan apply to the streetscape project. Kind of recap some public engagement that we had this year, and then sort of diving into the plans and the framework that we've created so far.
Would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Erin Hathaway. I'm with Gresham Smith. I'm the project manager, and I'm a landscape architect. With me, I have John Eckler. I'll let you present yourself.
I'm John Eckler. I'm a senior transportation engineer for Gresham Smith. I lead the roadway section and the development for the project.
So the rest of the folks on screen, you may be familiar with Lewis Johnson, who helped me out with the downtown master plan project, who's also helping out on this project. We've also brought in a utility engineer and then our support staff to really help us create a successful project with you guys. I just want to say this is the type of project that we love to do. As a landscape architect, I love creating public spaces for people and cities. And of course, John Eckler and his transportation team, we work hand in hand on those types of spaces. So we're really excited to be a part of this project and see this transformation in your city. So in terms of where we are in the project, the black line in the center right under May is approximately where we're at right now. We kicked off the project back in about February, and we've worked a few months on this planning phase, thinking about the 3 blocks really that we're looking at. We had we had a stakeholder meeting with local business representatives, and we also met with KYTC. And really, this is kind of a phase change. From here on out, we'll move into design, development, and construction documentation, and I'll go over what that means at the end of the presentation. But so the background, the downtown master plan, we worked with Joseph and Joseph and Bravera and Earl really heavily on that plan to think about how the downtown master plan can lay the framework for the future of this town. And 3 real big themes came to the surface for us throughout that process, which I think can apply directly to this project. One is connecting people, places, and culture, so really kind of exposing and exploring the history in Danville. The downtown can be a platform to learn about that history. It could also be a jumping off point to explore the different regional areas in downtown or around Danville and Boyle County. The second one is make streets for people, right? So everything within a right-of-way is a public asset, and right now a lot of it is heavily designed for cars. But streets can be for people as well. And so we want to make sure that these streets that are in downtown are safe for those people. And then last, we also found that infilling block slots and buildings can really help activate downtown, whether it's through the buildings or surface lots or streetscapes, sidewalks, we can pull activity out into those and create a more active downtown framework. So that's sort of the launching off point for where we started thinking about the 3 blocks in this project. And how do those ideas translate to this specifically? First, we started by evaluating safety, and I'll let John chime in on this slide since it's his kind of bread and butter.
Right. So we started by looking at the primary intersections of these 3 blocks and really focused on the 3 intersections along Main Street and then Walnut and 4th to make the streets safer. It's not, as Aaron mentioned, the road right now is set up primarily for vehicles. Pedestrian facilities are there. You can walk around downtown, but we can make it better. And part of making it better is making it more comfortable for folks that aren't in a car, making it more usable and safer. So we looked at these intersections. The primary thing that we start to look at is take some of the space that's currently allocated for vehicles and allocate that for pedestrians. So widen the pedestrian zone, move the curbs out away from the buildings a little bit, narrow the streets some. That will shorten the crossing, so literally the exposure time, the time you're in the street trying to cross with traffic is shortened. And then we'll do things to highlight those crosswalks, highlight the signals to make them more visible so that vehicles, as they're traveling through the corridor, will react to them appropriately. So you'll see as we get through some of the slides, Aaron has some of those details kind of baked in here. We'll get into some of those details a little bit further in the presentation.
So increasing the overall safety along the downtown core, I think John mentioned a lot of these, but part of it is creating a good separation between those pedestrians and the travel lanes. It's improving lighting, shortening those crosswalk distances. We're talking about reallocating that space. Again, can we start trimming off some of the travel lanes and dedicate it back to pedestrians? And create spaces like outdoor dining opportunities and seating, activating the streetscape a little bit more with people. And of course, making sure that the landscape features that are proposed are sustainable. The canopy in downtown Danville, I don't know the percent off the top of my head, but it's a fairly low percent of tree canopy, which isn't great for a lot of reasons. And so we want to make sure that the trees that we come back and plant have healthy root systems. So, the picture on the screen right there is a soil cell. That's infrastructure that we plan for underneath the sidewalk to allow those roots to really thrive and for the tree to live for a really long time. And as well, just, what does the other landscape look like and how does it function within the sidewalk and for the downtown? So as I mentioned before, we had a stakeholder meeting back in March where Josh was able to ask a bunch of the property and business owners along this corridor. Looks like there's a problem on the slide deck, maybe. So when we presented this information, we went over a lot of the same slides that you've seen tonight, but we started with a prompt about, okay, here's the existing section of Main Street. And so you have about 86 feet between the two facades of the buildings. And right now you can see there's a lot of room for cars and a small amount of space for pedestrians. But up at the top, I created a list of what would happen within this space. So you have a lot of things that you kind of have to cram into this zone. But luckily for you all, you have quite a wide right-of-way here. So it can be everything from, deliveries to those businesses. We want to make sure we still have parking, that we account for the traffic that's needed to get through downtown, street trees, lighting, safe lighting. There's utilities that exist underneath the roadway. We have stormwater challenges. And then thinking about, you've introduced parklets, people want cafe seating, bicycle parking, historic signage, again, going back to the master plan about telling those historic stories that are relevant to Danville, potentially having public art, and even the street sometimes acts as event space for festivals. So there's a lot of stuff happening in between the buildings on Main Street. So how do we kind of reconfigure that space to work for all of those pieces? So we asked a bunch of questions. We asked, what would people like to see? And we kind of took notes and sketched while we had this conversation. And just to recap some of the points that came up, everybody was very happy with the parklets, and would love to see more of that entertainment and dining opportunities along the sidewalks. We talked about the bump outs at 2nd Street really work pretty well, and how people would like to see that on 3rd and 4th intersections as well. People talked about parking and the possibility of making the public lots north of Main more accessible for people after 5 p.m. and on weekends, and having signage that can direct them to that, so that way there's more parking opportunities. And of course, the reiteration that making this a welcoming and comfortable space with things like tree canopy and seating were important for those folks. We talked about the functionality of landscape, whether it's tree canopy, some of the existing landscape right now in downtown. There's some shrubs that maybe aren't helpful because of the size, and they're right next to parked cars. And so just thinking through what we propose is functional and maintainable long term. And of course, we wanted to make sure that we captured, the deliveries for these businesses. Right now, deliveries use the median or the center turn lane. Everybody felt that that was very successful and wanted to see that be maintained. And the last thing we talked about was the utility lines along 4th Street, those overhead lines right now, and the possibility to bury those in the future. Okay, so where we're at right now, we've worked together as a team with Josh to come up with really the framework of the plan. So that means we're making sure that all of the intersections have been thought through. What lanes, drive lanes, turn lanes stay or go? Where do the curbs bump out? Where do they stay? Where does parking? So we've really kind of worked through all those pieces, and moving forward after this, we'll get into things like details, materials, character. But for now, it's just the framework. So I'll walk through each of these blocks and show you kind of what we envision and how that plays out in real plan. So this is 4th Street. Main Street is at the top of the sheet, and Walnut is at the south. What we show here is it's striped as 1 lane southbound with a bike lane and parking on both sides. What we've done is maintain the ability to restripe as 2-lane or 2-way in the future, so we're not limiting ourselves. This is sort of a test run to see how that traffic pattern works. And what this does give us is the ability to capture 7 new parking spaces along the east side of the street. Again, we are proposing to bury the overhead utility lines on 4th Street all along this block. We're suggesting we bump out the curb on the east side near Walnut. Really what that does is improve visibility. So that intersection at Walnut and 4th Street has a really high incident rate. And a lot of it has to do with the building on that northeast corner. And by bumping out the sidewalk there, it allows for a lot more visibility at that intersection. And we're also creating permanent amenity spaces and introducing tree canopy, which doesn't exist on this block. If we move over to Main Street between 4th and 3rd, 4th Street's on the left side and 3rd Street's on the right side of the slide. Again, we're burying the overhead utilities, crossing Main and even up along Weisiger Plaza. And we have bumped out curbs at each of the intersections. That reduces crosswalks, slows down traffic. On 4th Street, you'll see we've restriped the lanes for only 1 through lane down through the single lane below Main Street. We've created a lot more permanent amenity spaces. So by narrowing down the travel lanes, we're pulling space back for pedestrians. So each side of the road, the sidewalk grows about 5.5 feet on average. In addition to that, we've singled out certain areas to bump the curb out even farther. And you can see them on the plan highlighted there. We've maintained that delivery median and even thought about in the future in our planning phases what type of character we might change to the street to improve that. And of course, we're replacing and improving and in fact adding more trees to the canopy. If we go over to Main Street between 3rd and 2nd, 3rd is on the left-hand slide and 2nd is on the right. Similarly, we are creating bump outs at all of the corners to reduce the sidewalk, the crosswalks, slow traffic. And then as you look at 3rd Street, the southbound right turn lane from 3rd to Main has been eliminated, and it's combined with the through and the left turn lane. And the same thing happens on 2nd. We've run the traffic analysis to make sure that that doesn't have any impacts on the level of service there. But what it does do is it provides a lot safer environment for pedestrians crossing the street. And it also gives parking opportunities on those 2 street sides. Similarly, we are creating more permanent amenity spaces. Again, we're bumping out the curb about 5.5 feet on both sides and creating permanent zones for dining and seating. Again, we are maintaining that delivery median and potentially looking at adding in landscape medians and other character to improve that asphalt. And then, of course, replacing and improving the tree canopy that's out there. So if we look at this by the numbers, what we're looking at is, the existing parking on Main does decrease, but we gain some other spaces on 2nd and 3rd north of Main, and we also gain spaces on 4th Street south of Main. So we're losing about 6 spaces total in this conceptual phase. And, but we feel like if we're able to sign the lots north of Main as public parking after 5 and on weekends, the conversation we had with the stakeholders felt that that was an appropriate move. Additionally, the pedestrian space, so we added up all this extra space that we're gaining, and it's about 20 to 22,000 square feet. And that amount, well, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around how large that is. It's about the size of Weisiger Plaza. So if you take that plaza and scatter it throughout those 3 blocks, you're really, really having a huge impact on the pedestrian space in downtown. And the tree canopy, there's 60 trees existing in this area right now, but we're replacing those trees and looking at adding an additional 20 to 30 trees to that, depending on field conditions and underground utilities once we get into the nitty-gritty of planning. And I'll let John speak to this traffic safety slide.
And I'll back up a half a step first. I failed to mention earlier, we have been working with KYTC along the way, coordinating with them as we've been doing our traffic study. So they're aware of the things that we're proposing and that we're talking about. So as Aaron mentioned, some of those turning lanes potentially being removed. We have studied that, done the traffic counts, and looked at what impact that has along Main Street, and have discussed it with KYTC. So they're aware of what's going on. The slide here, so this is where sort of it all comes together. So the crosswalk itself is much shorter. With the bump outs and the area that you're able to recover, you're just not in the road nearly as long as you are today. We'll add the high visibility striping to make sure folks in a car can actually see that there's a crosswalk there and be aware. Signals, we have anticipated replacing all the signals, and we'll include back plates with high visibility tape. Again, that just gives you a target value for someone in a car. Plus, with this east-west orientation of the roadway, as the sun rises and sets in the evening, that back plate gives you a little bit bigger area to kind of shield the sun and let you see that signal just a little bit better. Again, eliminating the turn lanes, there has been some problems with folks in a turn lane trying to jump out and missing someone in a crosswalk. If we eliminate that, again, it may cause a moment or two of delay for someone on that side street, but it makes the overall safety better for the intersection. Lighting throughout, I'm sure Aaron may get into it a little bit more. We will look at both roadway and pedestrian, and then we'll, specifically at the intersections, we'll look at those lights and place them in such a manner that as a car is approaching you, you will be well lit and highly visible to a car approaching. So these are the things that we look at to improve the safety and operation of the roadway.
Yeah, so this is sort of a glimpse into what we've talked about would look like at a very framework level. Like I said, the materials and the character and the details that happen behind the curb is what we'll figure out in the next phase of the project. But what we wanted to do to start was to just get the traffic right and the safety right. And so that's where we really are today. Let's see, I think, so again, back to the schedule. The next sort of 3 months will be design development, where we look at the different amenities, the specific materials, the seating, the lighting, the specifics of that we'll get into. And then moving into late summer, early fall, we'll create construction documentation that really is a permitting and bid set for the city. So with that, that's the sort of where we are, and we're happy to answer any questions that you all may have for us.
Have you given thought to, one of the things we enjoy now is a buffer between parked cars and the roadway. Two things there. Obviously, if a biker wants to ride down through there, he's got his own lane, her own lane. And secondly, when you come out of your car and open up your door, you can at least get out of your car and feel safe, that you're not getting ready to get run down. You're proposing to put that more into sidewalk. Okay. And I'm sorry, anybody got any other questions or thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
Go for it. Oh, she got a page and a half over there.
Well, I'm new to this. I
No, it's
really
great.
appreciate
No, it's great.
the look at safety, which has been a big issue in town. I really appreciate looking at Walnut, very big safety concern. I'm glad Josh talked to the property owners, because my first thought's always, I mean, our job's to do what the citizens in general want, and I'd almost want to know how many people are for this and how many aren't, and that type of thing. The delivery median would be fantastic. That would be very, very good to have. The tree canopy is a question.
Yep.
I don't know. Of course, there's more bird poop and that all on the seats. But a lot of businesses, I've had a few people I know, the trees block their business. The trees block it and the birds poop all over their awning. And I know a couple businesses, I think they look great without a tree in front. I mean, beautiful. They've redone, so, you know, they're visually pleasing in and of themselves. So what's your thought on all these new trees?
Yeah, so I will say that, you know, the trees that are downtown right now are ginkgos, which have a low canopy, right? The bottom of them dips down. It wouldn't be a street tree that I would plant. They're great trees. I love ginkgos. But I think if we were to come back and plant the right species, the bottom of that sort of, you know, tree ball would be a lot higher. It would be above that first floor level that you see. And we can look at different examples of other main streets and how much that tree canopy, the types of species, and where it sits for that level. You know, we met with probably, Josh, I'm thinking about 20 to 30 people. We heard full support of trees. I didn't hear any sort of, the opposition was about, you know, the existing shrubs that are downtown right now, and that sort of form of a shrub takes up a lot of space, and it's right beside parked cars, and it makes it difficult. So the trees, at least, you know, you at least have just the trunk and the sidewalk. You know, we identified in the master plan the lack of tree canopy downtown. You really only see it in the blocks that we're talking about, and a little bit further on each side of Main, but none on south of Main on 4th and 3rd. There's no tree canopy there. It gets very hot if you're walking as a pedestrian. Anywhere on 3rd and 4th, it's very hot. And it contributes to urban heat island effect. So there's a lot of benefit of planting trees. But it's certainly something to keep in the conversation and bring up the concerns if other folks have concerns about the visibility of their.
Like if a business didn't want one in front of their business. I don't know, just to make that an option. And I appreciate you looking at a different tree than the ginkgo. I don't really know why that was picked. But that would be a good change too.
There's a story behind that one.
Okay.
I thought we got rid of most of the ginkgos. Did we replace them with more ginkgos? Not
No,
to
we-
go down a rabbit hole,
No,
but
we've not added any trees to Main Street, and we have removed at least a couple over the last few years because they drop so much in the location of where they drop their seeds. But
and the smell.
and yeah, but no, we've not taken a mass number out. No, not at all, and we've definitely not added any back.
Okay.
The trees would be further out from where they are now as the sidewalk pushes out. So it may help that, the building facade a bit.
I thought planting trees on 4th Street from between Main and Walnut was a little surprising to me. I'm not sure how I feel about that because the purpose is to kind of open it up. But if we're going to put trees in there and still allow the restaurants to have sidewalk seating, it seems like those would be in the way.
The thing that's most restrictive down 4th Street is your overhead utilities. That
Right.
is substantial, that's the biggest reason why you don't have trees there historically, is the fact that there are overhead utilities in the way. Or they would have probably been planted a long time ago, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you think about the areas where you don't have trees, most of the time it's because of overhead power conflict.
So, and I can't remember, would the sidewalk be extended there?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
it would
you're
be a
talking about-
wider sidewalk and the trees would be in a different, closer to the street, and you
Yeah.
still have a lot of room there.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
the street trees on all sidewalks would be close to that curb. And we'd keep a certain distance of sidewalk, probably 10 to 12 feet of sidewalk that's clear from any tree trunk.
Okay.
In any of those areas. But some of those are the details too that will work. I mean, the plan that you saw with the tree canopy, that is just the sort of first take of, okay, here's where we could plant trees. And those types of details will get worked out. Like I said, really the curb alignment, the turn lanes, the travel lanes was what we were focusing on this first round, to get that set and then kind of move forward with the details.
Yeah, the elevation of your bottom of your tree canopy matters a lot too. Right.
The shape of the tree.
And
Right,
the
the shape
shape
of
then
the
matters also. Yep.
So all we
You
need
got
is
other
money,
questions?
right?
Yeah. So we're, with this will be one of the projects we're talking about internally with the capital projects.
Okay.
The capital list. And then we'll just see how this sits and see what y'all want to do.
So let me ask about parking. It's been suggested that in Europe that they don't even use parking spaces, that you just pull up, you park. I have no idea whether that's a good idea. I have no idea if that's a trend. And my other question to you is the trend back towards parking meters or away from? And the sub question to that is about parking tickets.
Well, I'll start with,
Now, Stephen, you just
I'll
quit, let
start
him
with
talk.
the first part of the
I'm impressed
question.
with the amount of sub-part questions that you offered there, kept on track, Mayor. I thought that was impressive. I think there were 4 total.
You got them written down.
So I think that if you look at downtown Danville, one of the issues that we see right now is people go and they park directly in front of the business they want to go to. And then if they want to go somewhere that's 2 blocks down, they get back in their car and they drive and they park directly in front of the next
Is
business.
that just Danville or is that just people?
I think that what we're trying to do is create a spot in Danville where people want to take that walk. That the streetscape is beautiful. They want to experience that. And right now, they're getting in their car because they don't want to experience it. So that's what we're trying to change. And I think a lot of cities are working on that. They're trying to create this space where people experience something. If you talk about the parking meter, I would maybe look to John about that one. I bring John for the hard questions.
Yeah, thanks for the softballs, I appreciate that. More and more what we see is electronic parking meters. Either a centralized station where maybe one at each end of the block or one in the middle of the block where you park, and then you go and pay with a credit card or pay with your phone or some other thing. And it's a pay-by-tag type of system. So you put your license plate in, and you 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever you allow. There are very few places that I have seen that have eliminated parking. It is still some sort of fee. Some places, I know Covington, for example, they'll give you the first 15 minutes free. They still have a meter at every spot. So you walk up and you punch a button and you get 15 minutes free. So if you just got to run in and grab something, that's how they have dealt with it. If you've got just I'm going to drop off some dry cleaning or whatever, that's how they handle it. Beyond that, then you just drop your coins, or I think they've got a credit card system. Lexington, where our office is, they've switched to an electronic metering system as well. They're in the process of converting to a central system. So some areas in Lexington, you'll have a one meter where you've got to walk 5 or 6 places down, pay, and then go on about your business. Some of the other streets still have the individual meters per parking space. So there's other things you can get into, public-private arrangements. I'm not an expert in those things, but I know they exist. Where you asked about enforcement. Enforcement becomes a private enterprise. I know Louisville has gone to that type of model. I think even Covington may have gone to that type of model. So it is out there. There's options like that do exist. Ultimately, parking is a city asset, and you manage it appropriately.
Most of the studies that we've done said a couple different things. Said they did want the on-street parking to be reserved for customers, and that they didn't want employees in those spaces. And so in order to offset those two things, or accommodate those two requests, we've always done enforcement. We've narrowed it in on 2 hours. Issues that are downtown is the courthouse. Whenever you have court in session, parking is at a premium. It's very difficult to manage for code enforcement and the parking staff. On those days particularly, we know that the courthouse does, the court system, the AOC does stress them to provide parking for their jurors, to be honest with you. When you have a large number of people there, a lot of times it's way more than the 2 hours. And so that's a complex issue and one that bears a lot of talk as we go forward, and definitely as we consider the streetscape. I don't think that you can judge for yourself anecdotally or whatnot, but the reduction in 6 spaces probably isn't the end of the world, but it's something that the downtown master plan did talk a lot about, and did suggest that the city can consider the idea of an additional parking structure to better enable the streets to be made for people, and creating the experience that she's trying to describe. That was contemplated when you did the downtown master plan. So there's a lot to talk about, and we'll try to do that as we go forward. It's a complicated issue.
So anywhere in there, in all the mayor's sub-questions,
Only had one.
is there a recommendation to add this electronic monitoring system anywhere?
Not for their work, no. No, that would be something that has to come from the staff separately. That's not part of their scope, to decide how to administer parking.
Is that something we need to think about, though?
We are thinking about that as staff, but how to engage in that final conversation, we're still formulating, and hopefully by the middle of summer, we can get into that a little bit more depth.
I want to get back to the concept that you all presented to us. And on a positive note, say I appreciate and I think the concept is right on target. Anytime you present a new concept to a community, there's going to be questions and debates and dialogues and whatever. But I just want to say for the first presentation, I think this is good. And I am a tree man, and I do like trees downtown. I like your concept about raising the height of them, but I just want to say thanks for the work that you've done thus far.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, I do have one more question. The losing 6 spots, was that including the parkettes that we already did? So it's not the parkettes? It's 6
No, it's not the
more.
parklets. Those are temporary. Those are installed just to see what the reaction is to decreased spaces. Or what does the sidewalks look like with a little bit more space adjacent to the sidewalk that a pedestrian can
I
access?
thought they were permanent.
Well, they're going to, they're working well. I hope they do become permanent.
Permanently temporary.
Well,
So we're not losing 6 and the
and those,
parkette
no.
spots.
Ultimately,
Here we are.
ultimately, those are a trial, really to see what the impact can be on additional public space downtown. They're well-liked.
Oh, yeah, they are.
And so ultimately, if you relocate the curb, you're going to relocate, and you won't need these because you'll add those with concrete. You'll add those with permanency.
It'll be on the sidewalk that would be wider,
Right.
that would go up against the street. That makes sense?
And I guess we're going to have to decide sooner or later as a community, we want downtown to be walkable, or we want downtown to have a lot of parking spaces. You can't have both. I prefer to have fewer parking spaces and have more walkability, but that's just me personally.
So we have 3rd Street one way, 4th Street one way. Maybe not now, but at some point, would like your thoughts on, should we continue that way? Is there a better way to do that? Just throwing it out there for you, since you're the expert.
We've had those conversations, and we've had those conversations with Josh and Earl, and
And make them
certainly
one lane like Main Street's what I'd like to do.
what we have done is make sure that whatever we do doesn't inhibit you from going that route in the future, So,
Look forward to that recommendation. Anything else? Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
thank you all so much.
Have a safe trip back to Lexington.
Oh, they want to take some of us with them? What time is it?
Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, and the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved to approve the minutes as
Second.
presented.
Commissioner Atkins, thank you. Commissioner Terry, thank you. Any discussion? Any changes, amendments? Seeing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 5 is an appointment to Planning and Zoning. I'd like to recommend the appointment of Sally Davenport to Planning and Zoning.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Any discussion?
I think this is an excellent pick.
Yeah.
I appreciate the choice.
Sure. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 6 is Codes Enforcement Report.
Good
Ms.
evening.
Lester.
You have before you the monthly report for April. We issued 49 business licenses. We were able to get the house at 1204 Sycamore demolished. And then we just got cleanup and stuff left to get that taken care of. We issued 100 parking citations. We had all of our alcohol licenses were due to be renewed by April 30th, so we were able to get all of those renewed by the due date, even with all the glitches with the state system. We had 104 inspections, notice of violations, et cetera. Joni was able to complete the 2020 historic structure survey of 84 buildings in the Commercial National Register District, as well as the neighborhoods around the Lexington Broadway National Register District. And a draft of that's been sent to the Kentucky Heritage Council. She's also worked on the public art design guidelines. This is Preservation Month for May, so she's been working on those with the Heart of Danville and the Bull Landmark Trust. We're still working on trying to find people to fill the Architectural Heritage Board vacancies, to work with the mayor on that. And she completed the COA for 116 North 3rd Street. And we've had some business consultations. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I know I heard you wrong. Parking tickets issued
100.
during the month of April? Wow, okay, I didn't hear you wrong. Wow. Is that an increase or?
A little bit. As the weather gets nicer, their parking officers and code officers are able to get out and issue more tickets. And so, yeah, you'll continually see that to go up.
And
more than likely.
that's violation of the 2-hour limit?
No, we cannot issue tickets for the violation now based on a court case. So we've got to, if we want to issue tickets for that, we're going to have to go to the systems you're talking about, some sort of electronic system. We're not allowed to chalk tires any longer. Not been able to do that for a couple years. So that's why they're issuing tickets for permit parking, handicapped accessibility, parking on yellow curb, parking by the fire, or within too close to the parking.
I just made a statement that we don't have a parking issue downtown, and you said 100 citations.
If you look at this report, it'll give you the ideas of what kind of tickets, the reason that they're getting a citation issued for.
And speaking of handicap parking, some consideration, that's all, should we have more? I'm not asking for an answer, just asking for some study on that, if you could. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask about property on the corner of 2nd Street and Duncan Hill.
We have been working on that, and there's several things happening. We met with a couple of the people from Duncan Hill. Josh, the city engineer's office, has been working with us, the city manager. We've talked to some of those residents today, so you'll see some more things happening. They are, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, they're putting lines for curbing on both sides of the road, or is it just on the one? On the northeast corner. They're going to be moving the stop bar out for that stop sign to help with visibility. So we're hoping that we can help with some things there, but it's ongoing, but hopefully in the next few weeks, you'll see some changes.
Any
Thank you.
screening to hide the cars? Any screening on the Duncan Hill side? Or fencing?
No, not as
yet?
of yet.
Not yet? Okay. Well, thanks for your efforts in that.
Anything else from Ms. Lester?
Mayor, I thought we had at least one person to serve on the AHB board. I made a recommendation to you.
If you do, the mayor's not it's not been on the agenda yet.
How many seats do we
Oh.
have? 2?
2.
I was supposed to check with her, wasn't
Yeah, you were, yeah.
I? When-
I have someone willing to serve.
We would appreciate it. It's a 7-member board. We have to have 4
Remind me
for
not,
quorum, and
I'll
it's
call.
really
Okay.
difficult to get that quorum when it's needed.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have Joni, and she helps with that a lot, but there's only so much she can approve as staff. So when we have to have a meeting, we have to have 4 of those 7, so it is.
Okay. I
appreciate
guess I was unaware there were 2 seats.
Julie and Melody.
Planning is only, just somebody check to see when the next expiration is. Sorry about that. We'll get that teed up.
You said
I'll see
check
if I
for
can't find
planning
them
and
from
zoning?
someone else.
You mean DAB?
Did you say check for planning and zoning, or?
Huh?
You said the next vacancy on planning and zoning?
No, I was asking for a heads up on when the next,
Meeting is.
not meeting,
Oh.
when the next expiration of board members.
On
is.
planning and zoning?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But we were also talking about.
I gave you your
AHP.
name, right? Okay, all right, okay, all right. I
Thank
thought
you, ma'am.
she said HAV.
Well,
You
we
said-
are. We have 2 vacancies on that board, so we're
Yeah.
working on that.
But I thought he was referring to the same thing, okay, all right. Planning and zoning, all right.
All right, thank you.
I got the next item too, so I'm just sitting.
Oh, very good. Second reading of ordinance number 1964, the Entertainment Destination Center. We need action. Do I hear a motion for the second reading?
So moved?
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins, second.
Second.
Mr. Terry, second. Discussion?
I'd actually read it.
Do a lot of cities do sections versus everything? I had some people tell me it would be better to have one big section.
We
instead
have
of
the whole
little sections.
boundary that we can utilize, but trying to close all of those at one time with traffic would not be possible. I'll let Earl discuss that with
Oh,
you.
so you're
Yeah.
closing with traffic? Because I don't think other places close.
It's
traffic.
mixed, some do, some don't,
Okay.
but our police chief says that we need to close those for us to have those, so that everyone is safe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we've relied on, to describe that a little bit more fully, we've relied on the nature of the streets that are in the area. And a lot of ours are higher volume through with turning movements where we already have pedestrian issues. And so out of the abundance of caution, the idea is to break it out into sections so that the closure of each street is organized for the police to manage.
Can we do more than one section at a time within that
It is
full
possible.
boundary?
Yeah, it would be possible, but there again, you want to make sure that you have access to the hospital, you have access
Right.
through town, you have access, you got to consider that overall impact.
So we can just move it around within this
Yep.
larger boundary?
Right.
Okay.
And if you pay attention to what we have traditionally done without the EDC, that's what happens. It's not the a large amount of town, it's a small section that we can utilize.
Right. And so once you submit for application, we have a lot of work to do. That's when you will have some additional meetings with downtown businesses on implementation and administration. So those meetings are to come with staff. And so that some of that conversation for the people that may be asking you, if you've had some questions, will be answered hopefully over the next couple of months with staff.
Yeah, there will be a lot of education to help everyone understand what we can do with it.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Madam Clerk?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1964, an ordinance establishing an entertainment destination center to aid economic growth and tourism in the downtown area of the city of Danville, Kentucky. Further directing the application for an entertainment destination center license from the Kentucky Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, and further establishing the requirements for a license to sell alcoholic beverages within the common areas of the entertainment destination center. Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes,
Commissioner Atkins?
Yes, ma'am.
Item 8 is the second reading of ordinance number 1965. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the second reading of ordinance 1965.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion, if there is any? Seeing none. Madam Clerk?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1965, an ordinance changing the zone from RM2 to family residential to CB Central Business District for approximately 3.4904 acres, more or less of real property located at the intersection of South 2nd Street and Martin Luther King Boulevard in the city of Danville. Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes,
Commissioner Atkins?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Item 9 is the second reading of ordinance number 1966. This is 128 Wilderness Road, zone change. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Atkins, thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion? Madam Clerk?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1966, an ordinance changing the zone from RM2 two-family residential to CB central business for approximately 0.050 acres, more or less, of real property located at 128 Wilderness Road in the city of Danville. Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Just to make sure, this is the one that's at Wilderness Road, close to Main Street, right? Right, that little area close to Main Street?
Little gray building?
Yeah. okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Item 10, I'm sorry, is the ordinance number 1967, surplus of Old Fackler Street. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Atkins, thank you. Second?
Second.
Mr. Terry, thank you. All in favor? I'm sorry, wait, discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1967, an ordinance closing right-of-way of Old Fackler Street, which was abandoned and not utilized after the relocation of said street, declaring right-of-way on Old Fackler Street to be surplus property and authorizing the city of Danville to dispose of the Old Fackler Street right-of-way in accordance with KRS 82.083. Commissioner Atkins,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Commissioner Holland.
Yes.
Item 11 is resolution number 2021-05-10-01. This is a cemetery lot plot buyback from the Bowles. Do I hear a motion?
I move for approval of resolution 2021-15-10-01.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 12 is resolution number 2021-05-10-02. Again, cemetery buyback from Trevilians. Do I hear a motion?
Mayor, we would ask that you pass this matter to the next meeting. We're still waiting on some identifying information from the owner of those lots.
So we will move that till some other time. Okay? Item 13 is resolution number 2021-05-10-03. This is with respect to the surplus items. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Atkins, thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 14 is resolution number 2021-05-10-04. This is also about a city auction surplus. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins, second.
Second?
Commissioners Holland and Terry. Discussion?
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So how do you advertise this to let people know?
The public auction at the Public Works Garage was previously set for a date due to COVID-19 has been delayed, and so it will be advertised at an appropriate time, probably on the city's website, Facebook page, things of that nature. It's not required to have a public advertised notice. Now, for the online auction, the URL will be published along with the items to refer people to the Gov Deals website.
Okay, so you can buy things online too?
You can. So that's why there's two resolutions for you
okay.
tonight, because one of them purports to have an actual physical auction, public auction, old school style. And
The
the
previous
other,
item was is an online auction.
correct. So the city, I don't remember when the law changed, but maybe certainly within the last 5 years that allow cities to have dispose of items by public auction via online auction. And so the city then selected the vendor Gov Deals to utilize for that purpose, and the statute specifies how you do it, which we follow every time. And items are placed there, and they pay for delivery if they're the successful bidder and things of that nature. The website host retains some fee or commission of some sort, and then basically handles everything and just sends the city a check.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But this is for the live auction.
The one before you was for the live auction. The first one was for an
Online.
online auction.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 15, City Manager Report. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We have one thing we'd like to mention is that for the Walker Hall property located at the corner of Third and Martin Luther King and Second, the city has received a signed contract of sale, and so that's good news, and we'll schedule the closing as soon as practical.
Perfect.
That's all I have, unless you all have questions.
Questions? We'll move right into hear the public. Public comments on anything on the, either on the agenda or off the agenda.
There are no comments.
Okay. We'll move right on into commissioner comments, if there are any. Seeing none, we'll
Wait a
move.
minute, I was going to make an announcement.
Yes, sir.
The second of two workshops scheduled by the Women's Network dealing with poverty in our community is scheduled for tomorrow night, May the 11th at 7:00 p.m. It's a Zoom meeting, but it's also a public meeting. I don't know the location though, but I'd say Zoom and public, but Margaret Garner is the contact person for that workshop on poverty.
Okay. This Friday at 7 o'clock at the showroom is a opportunity to show our support and gratitude to Alyssa Ray for putting on a great showing for Perryville, Kentucky, and in general, our region. And that's at the showroom.
And it's outdoors and it's free, unless you want a VIP ticket, right?
Mhm. Yep. Anything else?
I guess I'll mention, I received a lot of emails this week from students, and I just wanted to put out there if anyone wants to talk to me personally, that'll be fine. And I think a meeting is scheduled maybe. Do you think, Mr. Dexter, is there a meeting with the community?
Not right now. We will be
Okay.
scheduling a meeting with some of the folks involved,
That'll be great.
yeah, in the next
Thanks
couple
for the
weeks.
update.
Okay. Move right on into financial. Item 16, payment of the bills. Do I hear a motion to approve the bills as presented?
So moved. May the 11th bill list?
Mr. Atkins, thank you. Would you like to state the amount?
$1,011,534.45.
There you go.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins, and second, Commissioner Terry. Any discussion about that? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Item 17 is the first reading of ordinance number 1968. This is the budget amendment. I do believe that's for the fire station. Do I hear a motion for the first reading?
This,
I'm sorry, it's for Jenny Rogers and the
Rogers.
Senior Citizen Center. We've already done the amendment last time for the fire station.
Yeah, this amendment's necessary because the Jenny Rogers acquisition was not anticipated when the budget was crafted last year.
Mhm.
So the money appears as an appropriation to the general fund, raising the general fund appropriation by the amount identified of
640.
$640,000. At the same time, you had in your packet a request from a gathering place, the city's local senior activity center and adult daycare request they made. So during COVID, initially last year when the city was doing community allocations, their request was about $66,500. And through the budgeting process, because the city had concern for its own survivability and revenue, the commission ultimately chose to reduce their allocation to $26,500, so about a $40,000 reduction. One of the things the COVID impact had is their demand for at-home meals went up dramatically as seniors could not get out to the center, and the overall, and seniors could not receive visitors to their homes. Their letter indicates that the overall impact of COVID meant that the number of meals per day provided from their facility almost tripled ultimately. They're serving around just under 200 people a day now. And so what they have requested is that their funding be restored. The city would suggest, or city staff is suggesting that the COVID relief funds that the city received, this is an appropriate use for that money at this time. And so staff would recommend that you also include that allocation of an additional $40,000 for a gathering place with this budget amendment. That $40,000 will come from your previous CARES allocation that you received.
Thanks for that information and clarification.
So the total budget amendment would be raising the general fund appropriation to $26,717,191, which is an increase of $680,000. The $640 will come from reserves. Of course, you have just confirmed that you have an executed contract with Walker Hall, so you'll be getting that money previously invested in that property back to help offset this cost and replenish your reserve,
So that sale was for $900,000
plus demolition costs.
plus demolition costs. Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
It's about 150.
Okay, so that's $1 million.
So
And then the amount of Jenny Rogers was $630. It was $640 even. And then we're going to give $40,000. So, with the exchange of those properties, that's a pretty good gain there.
Any further questions or comments?
do we have a motion on the floor
I believe we do, don't we?
for first reading of ordinance 1968 budget amendment as presented? I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Atkins. Thank you, Commissioner Terry. How in the world do we get that backwards? I don't know. Anyway, no more further questions. Madam Clerk?
This is the first reading of ordinance number 1968, an ordinance amending a portion of ordinance number 1950, which established the City of Danville, Kentucky annual budget for the fiscal year 7/1/20 through 6/30/21 by appropriating funds for the operation of city government. Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins?
Yes, ma'am.
Item 18 is the report from our city engineer, Mr. Morgan.
Uh-oh.
What in the world's he got up there now?
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. I'll make this pretty brief. We've been here a while today, so. Just a few quick updates for things we have going on. Beautification, you might have noticed that flower planting has begun. They started last week, and it should be ongoing at least through most of this week, we believe. Spring paving list, you all approved that at a previous meeting, and that is scheduled to begin next week. So we should start to see milling beginning. They said beginning of next week is what they've told me at this point, the Allen Company has. Public services garage renovation. Earl and I have been working on this and thinking about it, and so we received a cost proposal from Marilla to do that project as a change order, and it was much higher than we anticipated, and exceeds our budget by a fair amount. So we're going to kind of step back and see if we need to reach out to the architect and have a discussion with them about what it would take to update those plans from when they were done. Earl, when were those plans initially, before I was here?
Probably 2015.
Yeah, so we're getting 5-6 years into those plans. So they got some age on them that need to be updated. I think we'd like to have a thoughtful discussion with them about the current market. It's a strange time to be bidding big projects. We talked about that at the fire station. We were fortunate there, but I think we missed our window with this project. I think we're seeing the increased material costs hit us pretty hard, and we need to talk about if we go ahead, if we wait longer, are we just going to pay more, or is there a possibility if we wait a little bit longer, the market will kind of regulate back to where it was a little bit? We want to get some more information about that before we move forward on anything. And this is because we saw. I think we saw a 60-70% higher number than what we anticipated with that price. So it's a big number. Central Fire Station, I don't have a lot to update there. The numbers, what you see there is exactly the same thing you saw in February when I did this presentation. I'm still waiting on change orders from them for amendments they had to make to the bearing soil. Those numbers, we should have those very soon. Otherwise, there's, it's been a tough spring to get out of the ground, but hopefully they've been pouring some concrete lately, and we'll be able to see some progress. Once they get the foundations completed, they're going to move really quickly. They haven't indicated that that February 8th date is probably obsolete with weather delays. We're probably looking more in the March, early April range of actual completion date once they get that change order to me. But they indicate that that timeline is still good, so we're leaning on them as far as their schedule and making sure that they keep moving progress forward. Streetscape, last meeting, you all passed the agreement with KYTC for the non-standard material. We have sent that to them. Now we're just waiting on final approval from them for the materials that we'd like to purchase, and then we will order the signal poles and arms. And then at that point, we're at the mercy of the lead times that those will have. Streetscape design, we've talked a lot about it tonight. A couple of things that I kind of wanted to add, just my thoughts on a couple of the items, questions you had. Parking's an interesting concept that we need to dig into more. Parking is like water flows. If it's available, it gets filled, right? So we need to have a good discussion about what we actually want what we want the downtown to be, right? Do we want, we've talked a lot about moving residential more downtown, having more people live downtown. Well, people don't want to live on a highway or a parking lot. They want to live on a nice street that they can feel comfortable with the kids going outside and playing in front of. So I think there's a real discussion of what do we want these streets to be. Parking is a big part of that. If you promote parking that turns over a lot, that becomes an issue in itself of pedestrians and cars moving and constant traffic moving in and out. And I think that there's probably some newer concepts out there that we need to dig into of what we can make this a useful parking area for our businesses and for our citizens. And then the two-way, third and fourth, that's another topic that we'll get into eventually. But I think that traffic does a similar thing where if you make one street harder to drive on, people will find another street to drive on, right? So I think you see that with the traffic counts of second, third, and fourth. They're all very equal to each other. So people choose those equally, right? They choose second, third, and fourth as their north and south corridor very equally. They're all about 7,000, 8,000 trips a day. And I think if you did two-way, the same phenomenon would occur. You'd have 7,000, 8,000 trips on all three streets. But the tricky part with us going to two-way that we've discussed is where third and fourth diverge from each other, how you recreate that in a way where you promote people to take Third Street. If they're coming in on Houstonville Road and they have to turn off of it to go on Third, you hesitate to think, people will choose to do that. But they do it now on Second Street. When you look at the traffic counts, they're doing that. They're choosing Second Street if just by nature a certain amount of people are doing that. So I think there's some interesting things that once we get into more discussion about the Third and Fourth Street corridors and how we make those more downtown feel, I think we get into those discussions of the two-way. Wayfinding signage. One of the things I was waiting on was this new city logo, so we can kind of look at implementing that into the design and see how that looks. Now that we've kind of moved forward on that, I can get some concepts from Ryan to bring those back to you all to kind of finalize that design. We have the wayfinding master plan, but I think it'd be good to integrate the new logo into it. And we've got funding included in the FY22 budget under the capital. It's one of the items for you all to look at for us to roll that signage out next year. And like we talked about, you all can fund that in any way you want to. If it's a long phased approach or all at once kind of thing, we can kind of decide that. One of the things, Earl, that I did talk about, we do think it's a good idea to do as much as we can, as quick as we can, because if we drag this out 5, 6, 7 years, by the time we get to the end, we've changed our mind and want something different. So, which is something we've probably done in the past on other things. So it's, if we're going to commit, we commit and try to make a big push. It's kind of what staff would recommend.
We've already done it with this.
Right. That's probably true. Stormwater program, we talked about, the same thing we talked about last time, the upcoming plans for next fiscal year with the stormwater manual update. We received our initial, reply from the state for our annual stormwater report, and the number one thing that we have to do if our stormwater program is to update our stormwater manual and our stormwater ordinances need to be updated. They're 15 years old now. The permitting has changed. The permit language has changed. So we really need to do that. If we could plan on doing that later this fall, they're fine with that. They said do it within the next year is what we were told to do. So we have a year from now to take care of that. We can do that this fall. And then Streamland Phase 1 design fee. I'll have a proposal to bring to the next commission meeting to start that process. We have some money in FY21 budget to do that design, so we'll go ahead and get that rolling, starting probably at the next meeting. Trail system. Like I mentioned last time, we have encroachment permits with the state for the Stanford Road crosswalk and 11 Road access point for the trail out near Corporate Drive. The Stanford Road crosswalk, we've received replies on that, and they've pretty much taken the crosswalk out other than a little bit of signage. They're really uncomfortable putting a crosswalk in there. KYTC is. They don't want to promote. They don't want people to feel safe crossing there, which is an interesting thing. They have two trails coming together. So what we actually have come up with is next commission meeting, we're going to recreational trails grant. The application period is end of this month is when they're due. So next meeting we're going to bring a application to you all to approve for us to send in. That builds a pedestrian refuge at that crossing, which means we will take the road and we will widen it out and put a pedestrian refuge in the middle, so that when pedestrians only have to cross one lane at a time. They'll cross one lane, they'll have an area to stand with, they'll be big enough where they can have their bicycle. We also see that just as a way to that entryway into town on Stanford Road could be beautified, could be upgraded, and this is kind of one of those steps that we can take to bring a little interest to that corridor, as it's got a lot of economic activity going on out there right now. There's a lot of development going on Stanford Avenue, and this is one way we can kind of promote that corridor. And then upcoming projects, Mountain Bike Park, we were on the schedule for October to do that, and then we're pursuing funding for the Lebanon Road connection consistently. Cemeteries, we started removing the fence and some vegetation along the new First Street property. We're going to remove every other pine tree between the cemetery and that new property. That's one of the things we've kind of worked on lately is coming up with a plan for those pine trees. They're just too close together, and they're starting to drop a lot of limbs, and that will help us bring the two pieces of property together, but at the same time help our staff with maintenance issues. And then, like we've talked about, we have the committal shelter design in the next fiscal year's budget, and if that moves forward, we'll go ahead and get those request for proposals out as quickly as we can. And then we're going to start looking at signage. We have some requests. We have requests for section signage at Hilldale. We need to go back and look at the Bellevue section signage as well. We're going to work, now that we have the logo approved and we were talking about wayfinding signage, we're going to do new wayfinding signage for both cemeteries at Lexington Road and 2nd Street, upgrade those. So we've got some signage issues that I want to resolve. I feel like those are easy things that we can do to make the cemeteries look better. And then upcoming projects, the parking garage, the capstone repairs, that is completed. We still are working on the elevator tile replacement, elevator stairwell moisture and rainfall issues. The sidewalk trip hazard repair project is completed. The city spent $23,000, including $3,000 from KLC to do sidewalk repairs. We were primarily on Maple Avenue and Martin Luther King were the two areas that this was primarily focused on. Parks, the ADA playground for Millennium Park that was purchased with a grant from Little Tykes, 50-50 grant from Little Tykes, that is being delivered now. You'll see parts of it out at Millennium Park near where it's going. Where we receive bids on the installation tomorrow, which we'll bring those bids to you all at the next meeting for approval, and they can get started. Hopefully we'll have that playground in June. We're getting quotes right now for the Cowan Street Park entrance to take out the fence and put in some vegetation and clean that up, maybe put some decorative things in to make that entrance more attractive and more inviting. And then I'm working with the county engineer and planning and zoning on updating the subdivision regulations. We're probably less than a month away from having a draft ready to bring to stakeholders and to the commission and the fiscal court to review and say, hey, what have we gotten right here, and what do you all want us to take a look at again? So we're getting close to that. Hope to have that to you all the next month or so. believe that's it for me for that. Any questions?
Yes, that's a lot going on.
Yes. Yes, the city received proposals for solid waste collection for the city on April 13th. We received two proposals, one from Republic and one from Rumpke. I've included their bid forms in your packets, so you can see how they each bid. These bid forms are very similar to the same bid forms we did 11 years ago. As you can see, they bid it in a similar fashion, but their prices are very different. I mean, in the description, you know, the basic refuse and recyclable collection for a residential customer with Republic will be $14 a month, and with Rumpke, it would be $20.25 a month, which is a pretty significant difference. Myself, with the city clerk and codes enforcement director, we met as a committee to review these and recommend a ranking to the city commission for selection, and we recommend that Republic be selected to begin negotiations with their contract. This is a 5-year contract. Previously we did a 10-year. We've reduced that to a 5-year. I think everybody's kind of on board with that. The 10-year was a long time. But we will have, there'll be annual increases based on the U.S. Bureau of Labor. They have a index for garbage collection, actually, that we're going to use for that increase. And then we could do annual renewals for a few years after that. I'm not sure the exact amount. I think it may have been for up to 5 years. But the initial contract is just for 5 years.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
I'll move to approve resolution 2021-051005.
Thank you, Commissioner Hollins. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, discussion?
I just have some concerns about the customer service issues we've had in the last few years and continuing with this same company. I know there's a significant price difference there, but sometimes if the service is much better and the customer service is much better to the taxpayer, it's worth it. So I just want to make sure that we have those issues resolved.
The proposal that was given, or the requirements that was put on them have a significant amount of structure to them that didn't exist before. Our goal is to improve customer service by providing structure to the contract. This probably wasn't there before. And so the customer service was highly dependent on what interaction city staff could have with the contractor and could mutually work out along the way. And we hope with this presentation of the contract, which is a good reason I only have it as 5 years, with this presentation of the contract, you will see an improvement to customer service. And there's little things in there, too, that are subtle in that the contractor's cost structure is more predictable for them. And so before, you could have a situation where a route might generate 42 pickups that has, 80 cans, or they don't know if, going in, they could have predicted that it could have had 60 cans. So they're picking up 20 more cans than is not anticipated, right? So that meant that they had to cut corners and try to manage their cost appropriately. And they, quite frankly, probably did sacrifice customer service in order to do that. And so the contract that was in front of them this time provided more predictability on what their cost would be for them. And that's hard to describe in this format, but I do think that will ultimately improve customer service a lot. When you couple that with the language that in the structure of customer service complaints that was in the contract this time that wasn't there before, I do think you'll see a net gain. Do you agree, Josh, just
Yeah,
looking at it?
Just recently being here and kind of discussing with everyone that deals with the garbage complaints, and I think the length of that contract was part of it. I think it was just too long. I think there was just a sense of like, this has been too long, like we're just trying to make it to the end, kind of. It was a very strange kind of atmosphere talking to Republic about it. I'm hoping with this new contract, we can kind of, hey, if we recommit to you all for 5 years, you need to repay us by providing great service. I mean, what percentage of our calls lately have been broken cans, broken containers? I mean, it's a high percentage. Yeah, at least 90% of our calls are broken containers. That's bad for them as well for us. They don't want to be replacing broken containers all the time either. So I think there's just kind of a group. I've had some discussions with them leading up to this bid of, hey, we have some complaints here that we need to solve, and I think that if we do select Republic, we could sit here and blame them a lot about the issues that we've had, but I think there's also for probably us as leadership here at the city, we probably need to be recommitted to holding them accountable for the issues that we've had. I think that was one of those things that it was just kind of, it's just the age of the contract and the time it had been and everything else going on. I think there was a little bit of lack of focus on that, which, we have to commit to holding them accountable for things when we've just gotten too many complaints. I mean, I've seen the printouts of the spreadsheet. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, and
So-
the other complaint that I've heard is they call the number on the can, but then either nothing happens as far as replacement or whatever the problem is. They're told to call City Hall. If the citizens are supposed to call the number on the can, then when they do that, their issues are not getting resolved. So I just want to make sure that all that is addressed and that we hold them accountable for that.
We agree.
Josh, and the other question I had is that it's at 1206 right now, and it says, this contract has annual increases based on Bureau of Labor's data. Explain to me how that works and what could be an outcome of that.
So the old contract had increases in it as well. There were annual increases in the old contract that Earl, you worked on each year as city engineer prior. So there's a CPI index. If you go to the U.S. Bureau of Labor, there's an index for garbage collection, and each year we'll check that number and we'll do an annual increase to that amount. I believe when we initially, it's a 1206 right now, but I believe when we initially did that contract 11 years ago, it was more in the high tens maybe a month. It was 10. So it's slowly crept up.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small amount. Most people probably didn't even notice it on their bill.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing, when discussions with them, I think previously we used a different CPI index. One of the feedback I got from the vendors was that they'd like us to use that garbage collection index because that they know it's going to be a true representation of what their costs have increased. So that enabled them to give us a lower bid today, so that they know that they're going to get a true increase in the years following if it will match their actual costs. Because I think certain indexes are going to look at certain price, inflation differently, right? They're going to look at materials. Some are going to look at fuel. Like theirs is very fuel dependent. So if fuel prices go up, that'll be reflected. That enabled them to give us a better bid today instead of bidding in a lot of risk that we would be paying for now for the future.
And in this contract, we did not change anything for the recyclable part.
No.
We was always those rumors about recycling was going to be different. It's still one container, no separation of recyclables and all that kind of good stuff.
It's up to 2 containers for recycling.
Yeah, but we don't have to worry about the cardboard and the aluminum.
No, they don't have to separate anything. It's just.
Because that was a concern people were discussing. Okay, good.
And one of the things we've included in this proposal request is that they provide us with a little more data about the recycling that they're collecting and sending off to the recycling center. We haven't been getting that data. We don't know what the tonnage was previous years that we recycled as a city, and I think that's something that we'd like to see, that how the city's doing, recycling wise, or how are we contributing to the recycling.
And is that assisted in keeping the price down?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
If
Is there actual recycling going on?
Yes, we think so. That's, we want to confirm that. That is our goal, to confirm it.
You didn't know how to ask it, did you?
And the bottom line is, we have to do a better job with contract administration internally. We have consolidated the calls, so when a call comes in, one person reacts to those and reports those. That's helpful. What's important for the city is that the person that is working with the contract is the administrator of it, that we don't just pull that into multiple people trying to manage that situation. We kind of aided in that confusion ourselves. The city engineer needs to manage that contract and then use code enforcement to do enforcement items as necessary in the field. You have to be out in the field some and observe how things are happening. And so hopefully we have a structure internally that can better administrate our own contract. With an improved contract, our goal is to improve service because that's what we're supposed to do.
And you all have been, someone's been addressing the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock pickup in residential areas.
Well, the important thing there is, and I know Mr. Hunn would love to hear us talk about this because it's dear to his heart. Some of so there are still dumpster pickups that is done by a different company. This is not an exclusive contract. It is not a franchise contract. So if you have an apartment complex that has dumpsters, they can contract for that pickup themselves or use this vendor. Our city contract doesn't, it manages our own vendor. If someone has a third-party contract, it's done through code enforcement, through normal pickup times and things like that. So that is a little bit confused. It's not necessarily the city's contractor that's out at 4 o'clock in the morning, in other words, and it becomes something that we have to deal with through code enforcement, right?
Just because it's the same truck, same name on the truck, doesn't mean it's part of our contract.
That's an accurate statement, and a lot of times it may not be the same name.
Well, I can empathize with Mr. Hunn because I live next door to an establishment that comes at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that is a legitimate concern, and I'm sure it rattles his windows because he's made sure we knew about it.
Well, it's gotten better, though.
I remember a time, and I think it predates any of your terms in office, but Republic or I don't know who the prior vendor was before Republic. It may have been Republic. I don't remember offhand. Made regular reports to this body of the data that was how much trash was being collected and things of that nature. And it was pretty regular. I mean, it was more than semi-annual, I believe. I don't know. And that sometimes when we have built into contracts an expectation of presentation, it elevates the service provided. I don't know if that's been discussed in any topics or not, but even if there wasn't a formal presentation, a consistent place on the agenda for the data seemed to be valuable at one time.
Well, at one point in time, this was a local company that is no longer a local company. And M&M. Yeah.
Got a motion and a second, any further discussion? Good, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Enough trash talking.
Item 20 is resolution number 2021-05-10-06. This is with respect to Fairville Road Water System Improvement Easement. Mr. Carey's not here.
I'll do it. We have in front of you Resolution 2105-10-06. On the Perryville Road Waterline project, we have an additional easement that is requested by the property owner identified in the resolution, the Mann property. We would like to, it's a simple easement, but we would like to call to your attention the exhibit that's in the document and also the terms and conditions, which is essentially if trees are damaged, we will replace those. If fence is damaged, we repair it. Vegetation will be restored and property owner maintenance will be considered. Staff doesn't have anything else, but unless you have any questions.
Do we hear a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 2021-05-10-06 as presented.
Mr. Atkins, second?
Second.
All, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion for the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Is there any need for
Personnel. Yes.
I'll make the motion. I will move that we go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to KRS 61-810-1F.
There's a motion by Commissioner Terry, is there a second?
Second.
All, thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, like sign.
You knew you wasn't going to vote, didn't you?
We are Regular session.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Holland, we are in regular session. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. City staff is recommending the promotion of Scott Lawson to the position of fire marshal.
So
Do I hear a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Holland, thank you. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Continue, sir.
Staff is recommending the hiring of Joseph Strong as a certified firefighter.
Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Atkins, thanks. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Terry, thank you. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Any further, Mr. Coffey?
No, sir. Thank you all.
Then do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Thanks, Commissioner Holland.
Second.
Commissioner Terry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.